Hello, my name is Tom McGrath, and I serve as the Manager of Charter Grants for the Tennessee Department of Education. This session is designed to help your school successfully complete reimbursement requests in ePlan. Reimbursement requests are how your school is reimbursed for your allowable grant expenses. This webinar will provide an overview of how reimbursement requests connect to the annual grant lifecycle. We'll provide an overview of important information to know when beginning reimbursement requests. The bulk of the training will be a full walkthrough of how to complete reimbursement requests in ePlan. We'll first talk about the life cycle for all state grants to give you needed context for reimbursement requests. All charter school grants are administered by fiscal year, which runs from July 1 to June 30. All grants follow the same cycle, and this cycle repeats for each year of the grant period of performance. There are 3 stages to the grant life cycle. 1, the funding application. Schools are required to complete a funding application, and the budget must be approved by the TDOE team before they will receive grant funds. 2, reimbursement requests. Once the funding application has been approved, schools are able to submit reimbursement requests for allowable costs that occurred within the grant period. And 3, the final expenditure report, or FER. At the end of the fiscal year, schools complete a FER. This is required to account for grant spending and close out participation for that fiscal year. A FER must be completed even if all funds are expended. In this webinar, we are focusing on reimbursements, but please see your grants recipient guide and other resources on the Charter Grants website for assistance with funding applications and FERs. We'll now discuss the key background information you need to know as you begin requesting reimbursements. Reimbursement requests are initiated by your school's LEA fiscal representative. Your school can view your currently assigned roles in the address book section on ePlan. If you need to make any changes to your assigned personnel, complete the ePlan user access form for charter schools found on the ePlan homepage. A reimbursement request can only be submitted once the funding application is approved. If you haven't yet completed your funding application and need assistance, please see the funding application webinar on the Charter Grants website or your grants recipient guide. The request must be accompanied by documentation of the expenditure and a proof of payment. Reimbursements typically take 5 to 7 business days to be approved and paid through Edison. Before diving into the process, here are some common errors to keep in mind. First, requests can only include budget line items from your approved funding application. If you'd like to have additional expenses reimbursed that were not in your original funding application, you'll need to complete a revision to your funding application first. The key point, if it's not in your approved funding application, it shouldn't be included in your reimbursement request. 2, a request can only be submitted for expenses which have already been incurred within the grant period funding window. 3, only one reimbursement request can be submitted at a time. Note that multiple line items can be included in one reimbursement request, but you can only have one larger request in ePlan open at a time. You can submit your next reimbursement request when your last one says paid in ePlan. And finally, ePlan will not allow a request to be submitted that is 10% greater than the line item budget amount. Similar to when you want to add an expense, you would need to complete a funding application revision if you want to exceed your approved budget amounts by more than 10%. We're now going to walk through the steps to completing a reimbursement request. As you prepare your reimbursement request, I'd recommend downloading a copy of your approved funding application from ePlan. You will need to reference which expenses align with which line items in your approved budget, so you'll want that information readily available. First, we'll review how to access the reimbursement request section. First, you'll hover over reimbursement requests, then select reimbursement requests. Then select the correct fiscal year and the correct grant. Then click on Create New Reimbursement Request. Click on Confirm. Next, we'll need to input the amounts that we would like to be reimbursed by line item. To do this, first you'll click on Expenditure Details. On the Expenditure Details page, you'll enter any expenditures for which reimbursement is requested. Any field that is white can be populated with the total amount of expenditures for that line item. You'll need to reference your funding application to ensure that you are drawing down funds from the correct line items. One helpful tool that ePlan provides, if you hover over the white expenditure sections, you'll see the budgeted amounts, how much has already been requested, and how much is remaining for that particular line item. Once the expenditures are entered, the total fields in gray will automatically populate. One point to note here, after you complete your first reimbursement request, you will see the totals from your previous requests already reflected here. So using this slide as an example, the next time I start a reimbursement request, I'll still see 15,000 under the top line item supervisor director. I can then request additional reimbursement in that line item by increasing that amount above 15,000. When you're done inputting your amounts, you'll hover over Save and Go To, and then click on Next Page. Next, you'll need to enter a date into the Fiscal Information as of line. This is the date through which reimbursement is requested. After you input the date, again, you'll hover over Save and Go To and click on Next Page. The final step is to upload the documentation required for submission, which we will review on the next couple slides. You'll prepare a PDF with your documentation, and you can upload it to your request by clicking on Upload New. 3 documents are required with your reimbursement request submission. The first document you'll need is the cover page. We'll look at an example on the next page, but you can find a template for this on both the Charter Grants website and in your grants recipient guide. 1 cover page is required per submission. The cover page provides a summary of the reimbursement and directs reviewers to each expense's accompanying invoice and proof of payment. For each expense, you'll need to include an invoice and a proof of payment in order to be reimbursed. So for invoice, each expense must have a dated itemized invoice that confirms allowability and alignment to your approved funding application. For proof of payment, each expense must have a proof of payment that demonstrates that the invoice has been paid. Common examples of proofs of payment are bank statements, credit card statements, and detailed internal payment records. The best practice here is to clearly highlight or note the relevant sections of these documents so that a reviewer can easily navigate and understand your submission. An ideal document submission has this organization: cover page on the first page, then invoice number 1, then the proof of payment that matches invoice 1, then invoice 2, then the proof of payment that matches invoice 2, and so on. Here's an example of a cover page. Each page of the submitted PDF should be numbered and correspond with the number stated on the cover page. In addition to assisting reviewers, completing the cover page serves as a double check for schools that each requested line item has the required invoice and proof of payment. After you've uploaded these documents, you are ready to submit. First, you'll need to hover over Save and Go To, and then click on Sections. To submit your reimbursement request, you'll click on Draft Completed. The last step is to check the box and click on Confirm. After your submission, the TDOE staff will review your reimbursement request to confirm allowability and alignment to your approved funding application. If there are any required corrections, you will receive a detailed email. You can then resubmit a revised request. After TDOE approval, payment takes 5 to 7 business days through Edison. Thank you for visiting this webinar. Hopefully you can now confidently complete reimbursement requests in ePlan. If you have any questions about this material, please email or call me using the contact information on the screen. I'd be happy to assist. Thank you.